Welcome all of you for this amazing webinar series organized by Ahalya School of Management. This is the first one in the series. The topic is Impact of COVID-19 on Indian economy. Our resource person is Dr. Ashok Thomas. I invite Dr. Ashokan, Principal of Ahalya School of Management, to welcome the resource person. On to you, Ashok sir.
Hello, Bindu.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Ashok Thomas for consenting to be part of this particular webinar. In fact, I would like to go through his profile in a very quick manner. He has done his BA Economics from Madras Christian College, year 2000-2003, MA Economics, University of Hyderabad, year 2003-2006. He has done his MPhil Economics from University of Hyderabad, 2006-2008, and he has done his PhD in Economics from Pisa University, Italy, 2010-2015. He is working as a faculty at IIM Kozhikode from 2016 onwards. His research areas are savings and portfolio decisions and financial literacy. He has also received a PhD scholarship from ARSDU, PISA, 2010-2015. Once again, I welcome Dr. Ashok Thomas for this webinar. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for the kind words. I've been associated with IIM Kozhikode for the last 3 years. In fact, the topic of the presentation is also today's very demanding one. So I would use, I hope there are students and faculties who are kind of little well versed with macroeconomics. So I'm using the macroeconomics framework a bit to understand what is happening across. And we would actually take examples what is happening across in the news and try to indicate what is exactly happening. And that is how I've designed the whole thing. So I hope the enriching experience. Am I audible very clearly to everyone? Can I have a yes on the chat and then we can move ahead? I mean, is there any is there any if it's fine, and then I'll move ahead.
You can put your if you're audible, if the resource person is audible, you can please put it on the chat box. As I have muted all of you, you can put your response on the chat box.
So when you go it on a chat box, just use everyone. So you can use everyone, and then, yeah. I hope we are clear. So it's just audible. Okay, all right. Yeah. So I'll be very slow because in case if you are missing things. So the topic for today's discussion, I would say facilitate. I would just facilitate this discussion. We could have a discussion from everyone. So today's topic is how has this endemic or this pandemic has basically caused problems in the Indian economy. So I would start the discussion using a kind of very common model which we always use in economics, which is called as the aggregate demand, aggregate supply. So just for the people who are not well versed with this, I would just tell you in a very few words, aggregate demand is the total demand of the economy. What all is being basically demanded in the economy at different price levels. Aggregate supply is something which is being produced in the economy by all the producers. So this is a very conventional tested time model which is being used and which has been studied across the world. It's a kind of Keynesian frame. Anyway, so either an economy always not necessarily be in an equilibrium. Equilibrium basically means that whatever I produce is basically being consumed. There is no glut in the market. Everybody is employed. I am using almost 85% of my capacity utilization. I am producing to the maximum. I am consuming the maximum. There is no demand surplus, no demand deficit. All right. So this is the equilibrium. That's the best situation. But this best situation is not ever possible. Either because either there is a demand fall or could be a supply fall. A demand fall, as you see right now, people don't have jobs. People will not be demanding goods and services. Or it could be that people are not buying houses anymore. That could be a part of the demand. or it could be that exports are not being done. So that is also a part of demand. For that could actually lead to saying that I am not actually demanding so much in the economy. When I don't demand, I don't supply, because producer will not produce for everyone. Producer will produce only for demand, right? So the economy can go into disarray when you have either problem with a demand or with a problem with the supply. The simple supply problem is the onion problem which we faced, right? So suddenly the short-run supply of onions became a problem. And so what happened? Prices went up. So, there are different mechanisms through which we can actually come across this and bring back to equilibrium. So we'll be talking about whether we are in equilibrium first of all. If we are not in equilibrium, how do the government policies tries to bring us into equilibrium? Now, first of all, and finally, is this policies adequate enough? That is what the third part of the seminar will be. So can you move to the next slide, please? Or can I basically do it?
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah. Yes. So I just basically told you in a very layman's language what is this all about. So the first part is to understand whether demand has actually fallen down. Second part is to understand whether supply has actually fallen down in this economy. Now, once we right, signals of this mess could be understood from two important variables which we always look at. One is unemployment. That basically means people are not able to produce, therefore they will just throw them out. As unemployment increases, basically lesser people are working, lesser output is produced. With lesser money, because they don't have jobs, lesser goods are demanded. Second thing is always inflation in the economy. So you can get a fair bit of picture as to where the economy lies down using this framework. The third part of the presentation would basically take us to the fact that how do we fix the aggregate demand? So the demand has fallen down. How do I take back my demand? How do I refix my demand? That is the second part. The fourth part is what sometimes you must have heard in the newspaper very recently, structural reforms. What is meant as structural reforms is that reforms meant to pull back my supply. How do I ensure, along with my demand increase, people are able to produce more so that to match this demand? Over a period of time, I have to improve my supply situation. I have to make sure sudden increases in demand, I should be able to increase my production really well. Sudden fall in demand, I should be able to reduce my production also. So there could be a kind of legislations in terms of labor, land legislation. Something quite, with great level of criticism, some governments have taken measures like diluting the labor laws, increasing the number of hours of working. And these are part of structural reforms which the government is trying to. Given these two pushes or these two acts of the government in terms of monetary policy, fiscal policy, I'll explain. And from the point of view of structural reforms, will we be able to get out of this mess is the last part of the discussion. So we are just concentrating on how did we get into this? What can we do about this? Is this enough to get out of this? These three things would close the whole debate. Okay, can we move to the next, madam?
Sure. Yeah, is this the one?
So the third slide. So it should be the third slide. Next
Yes.
slide. Yeah. So let me basically get you quickly into what are the components of demand and what are the newses which you hear. Can we actually compare or compile everything, process everything, and say whether demand has fallen? Okay. Now, some people who have studied macroeconomics knows that demand consists of four things: consumption, investment, government expenditure, and exports, net exports. Now let's look at what is happening to consumption. Consumption means what we consume, each we and you consume. What has happened to consumption? Look at the graph, the growth in private consumption, generally it is above, that has actually fallen down. The first time, it's not the first time, but it is kind of falling down in the last few quarters. But such abysmal fall is kind of never recorded. Generally, when you look at aggregate demand, 55% of my demand comes from consuming stuff. It could be biscuits. It could be a service like education. It could be a haircut also. But consumption is a pillar at which all this moves on, right? So once we see that, once the impact of the COVID has happened, why this consumption has come down. The next slide. Now, why this consumption comes down? General economic theory tells that consumption is a function of income. So if you look at income from the last graph, so somewhere in April, 12th April, you see that people who has fallen in income have risen highly. Percentages have gone up. People who have fall in income has risen highly. Rise in income has fallen. No change in income has also. So dramatically, people don't have money in their hands. So this either could be just because they don't have jobs, they've lost the jobs. Second thing is that possibly, second way that consumption is not boosting the economy is because I don't have a haircut. Just for the last 650 days, I didn't have a haircut. I look very funny. But this is an essential service, but I'm not able to do it just because of a regulation. So non-essential products are not being consumed on a larger scale. I wanted to buy a new shoe. I can't go and get that. My wife wanted to get a platinum ring. Unfortunately, it's COVID, so it's closed. So we are also waiting for a lot of things to open, but these are the important things which has caused consumption. Next slide, please. Madam, next slide, please.
The consumption growth, yeah.
I mean, you can actually quickly go through the slides, but consumption, two things have happened. Consumption of essential commodities have actually gone up, and the growth of those non-durable goods have actually gone up. So you see that richer people, middle class, started buying a lot of things and keeping at their place. So FMCG goods, those kind of consumption has gone. But consumption of durable goods have actually come down. If you look at this is an old data, but if you look at, we are actually having a recessionary tendency, and this COVID has made things more deep for us to basically try to come out of it. Can you go to the next slide? So, as the 55% of my aggregate demand is actually getting, let us look at what is happening with investment activity. Now, investment activity basically, as for students, as for others, there are three things. One is being investing by companies. Firms do invest on machinery, plants, etc. Right? Two, governments invest on new plants. Right? Three, there's a kind of very interesting people, that is we as kind of households, we invest on houses, temples, gurudwaras, etc. invest on their church building or whatever, temple building, etc. So these three components are the components which are having a big hit. It is not that India never had a fall in investment, but way back in 1970 we had a 5.6 because of the oil shock. But if you look at the CMI forecast, it's a kind of deadly fall in investment. Now, if you look at why this investment is happening, why this fall in investment is happening, if you go to the next slide, you can understand a few interesting things. One is that if you look at the companies, right? Okay, I just can we go to the next slide? Yeah, this I've explained very well. So. Yeah, so there are two main reasons. One is that there is no new plans or new kind of buildings coming. To start, let's say, existing investment, we don't have labor, we don't have shortages of raw materials. Now, let's see that, even look at these, households which make 39% and the private investments which makes 37%. They are standstill. Now, why did all this happen? Why? Because the next slide, Bindu Madam. Why? Because one, if you look at large corporates, they have actually said, see, we don't have people to work. We have shrinks in sale. We have actually kept all our investment plans right now put on hold. That's it. Second, if you recollect something, when you have uncertainty in the market, generally people do not invest. They don't want to invest at this stage. We have no idea whether the market is going, so we will hold. Government basically also reduce, or let's say use public sector enterprises. They said we are not going to invest just because we are uncertain about it. Second thing, we have actually, a lot of them basically gave the money to PM's COVID fund. And their expansion plan, some of them is being halted just because of this. Second thing is that they don't want to, they want to trim their capital expenditures a bit right now because they want to see whether the fiscal policy, which we'll discuss later, is going to help us to start new investment. As for the last part, households, why do households stop investing? Why do people don't buy houses? There are two reasons. One is that I have a pay cut right now, which is going around, so I don't want to have my EMI affected. Two is that whom do I generally? Nobody has full money to go and basically start a house. So generally they go to a bank and ask for a loan. Banks during this time period, just after the MPA crisis, has become more prudent, and they say, we don't want to give you a loan right now because in this uncertain economy, we don't know your income uncertainty. So which three things basically has contributed? Let's say for your consumption growth has fallen down, your investment growth has fallen down. So these two are the big things, big chunks which has actually fallen. The rest is a very simple thing, which is net exports. If you look at exports, how will we basically have exports? It depends on some other country's income, right? Some other country has a good income, they'll say, we will export your stuff, we will import your stuff. Now, what is happening? Across the globe, this pandemic has caused uncertainty in income. So export incomes are actually declining, which is going to get hit on one specific sector, which is called as a MSME sector, which is why the government is pushing a lot of money, liquidity into MSME sector. The moment you basically move out of this, you lose export competitiveness. Some other countries like Vietnam or Sri Lanka or China is going to overtake you and say, we're going to supply this products to you. So therefore, the three important components of demand is actually having a hit. So how do we basically tell this in a very layman's language, that I am not consuming much, I am not investing much, I am not importing much, or neither I could earn some money by exporting. All this has actually caused a fall in my demand in this economy. So either in an economic situation, a finance minister treats to understand whether it's a demand problem or whether it's a supply problem. I would basically look at this as a demand problem or a supply problem is the first question a finance minister would take. Now, this is a big demand problem which we have, that people do not have job, people do not consume, people do not invest, firms are scared of investing, governments do not want to jump into the investment value. What to do? So let's kind of first tell that this is the first issue, that our demand has fallen down in this economy. Secondly, let's look at what happens to supply. Generally, in a Keynesian model, or when Keynes, who's been this vocal of this theory, says every producer will look at the production or possibilities by understanding the demand of the economy. If the demand is low, I will produce less. If the demand is more, I will produce more because I can tap more revenues into this, right? So can we just further, madam, can you just push this more? And we should be able to get a slide which talks about supply. When you go on, I'll say yes or no. Yeah, go on. Yeah, yes, go on. Yeah, maybe here, yes. So the moment, yeah, let's just go back a bit. Yeah, here. I mean, just that 2 slides before this. I mean, it's okay, but I can recollect. Yeah. So we talked about something called as demand. Now, how does suppliers in this economy are affected? For sure, demand is affected. So the supply is called as the short-run aggregate supply. Aggregate means everybody, you, me, everybody who is producing is a supplier. So aggregate supply. Now, generally, aggregate supply in this economy is studied into 3 different sectors. You must have learned this is the basic macro or basic economics. There are three different sectors: primary, which is agriculture, industry, and services. Now let's look at what is happening across these sectors and try to understand the picture from the news which we have. So generally when I teach here, I always follow what is happening in India and try to link it with the theory which we are looking at, right? So let's go and find out what is happening in agriculture. Agriculture was in a distressed situation in Q1 and Q2 and Q3 of Indian economy last year. Why? Because we had some unnatural rains. You remember the onion story, and suddenly onion prices went up to 100. We didn't have omelets in our home. We actually removed the most of the things which could consume onions. Those things were there, but there was something called as Kharif and Rabi, if you know the Indian agriculture season. Kharif season was actually lost. A lot of grains got lost just because of untimely monsoon. Now, all governments basically told, don't worry, you increase the acreage, we will procure everything. And that procurement and harvesting period right now is happening, is called as a Rabi. Now what has happened? Suddenly May 25th lockdown has come down. Now this was the time of harvesting. Certain states like Punjab, Haryana had these big harvesting machines along with skilled laborers. Skilled laborers either come from Bihar or they come from Uttar Pradesh. Now, suddenly this movement of people stopped. You had all this harvest, which is kind of lying idle. Using some machines has been done, but as days progress, harvest yields are going to go down. Okay, because most of the grains are lost or they sprout just because of rain. Second thing is that states like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar actually also depend on people from Delhi because they look at seasonal employment as migrant laborers to come. They are not very they don't have harvesting machines, they have skilled laborers. These people were stuck in Delhi, so they could not move out, and therefore most of the harvesting issues have a problem in the northern part of India. Okay? So what happened is that my production from agriculture for wheat as well as for pulses is going down, because you look at GDP in any ways, GDP could be demanded, GDP could be also produced. So the production side of the GDP is getting affected, at least in the agriculture sector for a big thing. The only hope is that rice production is a bonus just because Telangana has brought newer acres of rice cultivation just because now they have a better irrigation mechanism. So that production is going to go up and they can wait for some more time, so that's okay. But production from agriculture sector has actually gone down. Looking at industry, Bindu madam, can you just move on? Industry, if you look at most of my industrial production indexes, can move further. Yeah. I'll have a chart where there is a, so this is about the Kharif and other things. Yeah, the next one. Yes. Look at what is the core industries doing. Steel, coal, finished products like power generation, petroleum products. Once all this has come down, what has happened is that there is a huge fall in the production from industries also. Same works with services, I believe. Service industry, be it a kind of look at education sector, which has contracted almost by 70%. Certain industries in services are able to manage, but most of the service industries are actually managed quite bad. So what we are doing, what we are seeing, there is a fall in a huge demand fall. And also there is a huge supply fall, but not a great supply fall. Supply fall in terms of durable commodities, yes. But non-durables, perishable goods, there is not kind of production is still happening. But there is still problems with services and agriculture production. Industries is trying to cope up, but major industries are. So let me basically try and somebody is having audio issues, maybe because of the bandwidth. But just let me see if somebody is having. Yeah, Aravind is having audio issues. Rekha says video is stuck. Maybe there's bandwidth issues with your end. Just go on. I would just graphically put what is happening in the Indian economy very soon. So the demand is low, the supply is. That is it. So can we just go further? And there is a graph which I wanted to show you. So, yeah, Bindu, madam, just go on. Yeah, you just go on. I mean, these are very simple things you can understand by itself. All right. Yeah. So, yeah, just one more click. One more click, there will be a better graph will come. Yeah, one more click on that. Yes, wonderful. So, I mean, this is a classic, macroeconomics framework. Now, let's suppose you see that AD1 and the blue line, which is the optimum way, okay, where demand is met by supply and I'm doing everything perfect. There is no, everybody who is demanding in this economy is getting the amount of goods and we have a good inflation and there is no problem, no unemployment. Now, what is Indian economy doing here? You see that we have a potential way of growing. Suppose our potential is 8%. Every year we should grow 8%. Are we growing at 8% right now? We were growing at 4.5%. So largely because we have a fall in demand, which is being caused by, let's say, AD2 meeting that blue line, which tells me that I am not growing that way. Why do I say that I am not growing that way? Well, I don't have inflationary problems, but I have unemployment problems. So output lost in an economy means that much people are not required to produce stuff. Some people will lie idle at their home because they don't have job. So on one side, you will have small job issues when this AD2 is being coming down. But now what is now the situation? More drastic situation. We have again fall in our aggregate demand. So we have moved to that blue plus red line, all right? So which means we have a huge unemployment problem. But wait, that also means that we have lesser supply. Do we have lesser kind of, we have the good supply? No, our supply has moved back to the left because we don't have supply. I just told you, agriculture contracted, things have contracted. So we moved to somewhere really to the left side with that black line, SRIS COVID. So what happens? We have huge unemployment, but we also have some inflation at this point. Let us see whether our analysis, my analysis is correct from the news which we are getting. All right, can we go to the next slide, madam? So this is a very classic example which everybody knows. So what happens is looking at what is happening in unemployment. Unemployment was somewhere around 7 to 8% before this COVID. Now what happens to unemployment? 24%, which means that every fourth household is unemployed in this country. Is unemployed. Second thing, if you look at the second bullet point is called as labor force participation rate, which means people who are ready to work are not finding job. I'm ready to work, but I'm not finding job. I will slowly exit the market. Usually the number is somewhere around 50. Now you see 35.4% people are telling I'm ready to work. I will wait in the market, but almost 15% said they've lost hope. There is no employment. All right. So this means unemployment. From the last graph, we have huge fall in hope, which means that we have a lot of people who are unemployed. Remains correct. Second part, if you look at inflation, which is the left side variable. If you go further, if you go to the next slide, we can see that our inflation levels. So this is the unemployment just grown up really high. So generally, if you look at unemployment should be somewhere around 5 to 6%. It is considered to be ideal at 5 to 6%. Because some people will again remain unemployed. Some people say, I don't want to have job. That's kind of structural, frictional unemployment. That's fine. But otherwise, people should remain maximum unemployed percentage is 6%. Now you see, it's almost 26% by the CMI data. It's a big problem. So that means we are in a GDP contraction. We are in a real mess. Look at what is happening with inflation. The next slide, please. Yeah. Bindu ma'am, the next slide. Yes. So, I mean, just go on with this. I mean, inflation. Inflation is only there in few commodities. Food, vegetables and fruits because of supply chain problems. Non-durables do not have inflation just because nobody can buy them. Right? You can't go and buy a lot of things, right? You just can't do a lot of services also. So just because their demand is not there, their prices have not gone up. So ideally, what we see is that a huge demand fall, but a lightly bigger supply fall, but it is not causing inflation in our economy. So these are the main trends which is happening. One, because of a huge demand fall, we are having a problem. Second, we are having not a big supply fall, but a decent supply fall, which can be inflationary in nature. As of now, we don't have inflation because none of the products, we cannot access them. That is why we are not having inflation. But as the economy opens, when you want to have durable goods, when the inventories get over, when all this migrant labor is not available for us, supply. And if our demand is increasing for some reason because of the government policies, we are not able to match our supply, we're going to have inflation for sure. That is going to be the problem. So how do we deal with this situation? If you go back the next slide. Yeah, you just go back to this is a simple slide. I mean, one more click, madam. One more click on that slide. Yeah, you don't want to be giving a lot of people unemployment. Modi ji wapas nahi aayega. He won't come for election, right? People will throw him out of power if a lot of people are unemployed. Lot of people will be unhappy if there is huge inflation in the economy, like the 2008 crisis followed by the UPA time, right? You had 13% inflation. Nobody likes that. So he has to play safe and say that, let me reduce the unemployment, but also keep sure that my inflation levels are on check. Now, if you look at unemployment, if it has to be reduced, which means my aggregate demand has to increase. Inflation, it has to reduce, which means my aggregate supply has to increase. So government has two ways to do it. One method is called as shifting the aggregate demand to the right side, which means I have to improve my consumption growth, I have to increase my investment growth, my net exports, and my government expenditure. I can do it in two ways. One is called as a fiscal policy, which is taught very well by the government, fiscal stimulus packages. Second is by monetary policy, which is done by RBI. Okay, so the next part of this, as if we go cut, I'm going to talk about what are the interventions by the government which would make sure that we are in a mess, but at least we want to move further from this mess. We want to create more jobs. We want to make sure employments are up. We want to make sure demand is up so that people will consume more, people will invest more. And looking at this demand, producers will start producing more. And therefore, when we start producing more, they would actually employ more people, more resources. That is how the economy slowly moves to the equilibrium position, which is an ideal position. Now, Modi ji can't sit quietly and say, I will not do anything, let the aggregate supply take care of everything. No, he'll lose the election. He has to push aggregate demand. He will use two methods, fiscal policy, monetary policy. He started using it before the time period, but we will talk about fiscal stimulus and monetary policy, which has been there. And we will critically examine whether these policies are well tailored. Is it enough? Do we have deficiencies? What more from your side and my side you think can be made possible to push this aggregate demand to the right side? So the red line should be there till the orange, the lighter orange at least, so that we have lesser unemployment, more people gets job. Okay, there is some problem with the audibility. Maybe as we move, once we refix it, we have a problem. Let's see whether I can make it less boring and less more interesting. Now, what is my idea? My government's idea is to push this blue line to that small orange line, all right? So by pushing this, of course, there will be little inflation, but we are under permissible levels of inflation. Now, we have to basically make sure inflation does not cross. What should I do? Well, demanding more, I should supply more. That's a very simple thing, right? So as people demand more, government should make sure that supply centers are well equipped and they should be able to supply so that there is no artificial hoarding in the market. There is no kind of merchants who are making supernormal profits like that. So let's kind of see whether that's possible or not. That's what the government is doing. Now, there are, as I told you, in order to push the aggregate demand, there are two policies. Fiscal policy by the government. So if you look at the aggregate demand, there is a component called as G, or government expenditure. So generally government expenditure is nothing but the budget, right? Now, how much will I basically spend? How much money I will get from taxes to spend on this. Now, you must have also heard some nice word called as fiscal deficit, which should not cross more than 3.4%. What does it mean by that? It means that, well, even though my taxes are 100 crores, I can still spend 103.4 crores more. I mean, I can spend 3.4 more for 3.4 crores more. How do I do it? I will borrow from the market and spend it. So only thing is that I should not cross this 3.4. This is a kind of mandatory number. Now the government right now, is he getting taxes? No, there is no activity, so it doesn't get taxes. The economy is on slump, it has lesser taxes. So government has already basically spent a lot of money on this, let's say 10% of this Indian economy is generally spent by government on our salaries and our capital expenditures, etc. Now government is asked to spend more now, which actually causes problem for the government. Now, because they have to borrow more means they have to basically have to go to the market and say we need to borrow more. That means you are not in a good position. We will tax you more, or we will basically give you at a higher interest rate. Our ratings comes down. Our public debts basically go up. It's not a kind of fiscal sustainable for the government. So government will have to think twice before going for such huge expansion. Anyway, the government has opened up and they said, we are going to have a kind of 20,000 lakh crores of fiscal stimulus. So is this really 20,000? Is that first of all we have to see. Second is that close coordination with the fiscal policy. RBI will say, well, if you want to increase the economic activity in the economy by increasing the demand, you should have money. Otherwise, people, how will they basically buy stuff? How will they people basically produce stuff? I will increase the liquidity in the market. I will make sure all those people who wants to do transactions, all those people who wants to have investment, all those people who wants to basically import stuff will have money, which is called as a liquidity of the economy. Now, that is being taken care of by the RBI. RBI has different measures for that. We'll not go deep into it. So anyway, one easy measure you always heard is called as repo rate. So it's the rate at which banks are being lent. I mean, the RBI lends to the bank. This is somewhere around 4% right now. And you reduce the repo rate. RBI intentionally tells you, give more loans, because I give you at 4% instead of 6%. You should give to the guy who's asking for starting a factory, who's asking for starting a house at 8% rather than 11%. So basically, you see, people who are reluctant to have a house last year, people who are reluctant to start a business last year will find it much better now to start a business because I'm having a lower borrowing cost, right? So that is the idea behind reducing the repo. Anyway, we'll go deep into it, what is happening. Anyway, these are the two important measures. I'll just quickly grab through what is happening in the fiscal and the monetary policy framework. Let's first go through what our Prime Minister basically has talked about the initial, before this 20,000, initial part of this fiscal stimulus. Maybe we can go through the slides a bit more deeply. Can I just have the slides now? Yeah. So there are two things which the government talks. One is cyclical reforms. This is to push the egg curve. Structural reforms to push the supply curve, to match the supply. So whatever it is, the objective of all these policies are three things: save lives, protect people's income and jobs, stop companies from going bankrupt, enable a recovery. These are the important things with every policy must be. Either it's fiscal or monetary. Now, Ministry of Finance and RBI work in close hand in hand. They'll say, if I aggregate demand from the government side, we are pushing this much, you push it from the investment side by this much. So they go in hand anyway. What is the fiscal stimulus? Let's see what is the fiscal stimulus by the government. Go on. The next slide, please, madam. Bindu, madam, the next slide. Yeah. Anyway, I'll just quickly tell what is the initial level of fiscal stimulus was. Initial level was in kind generally, right? In kind basically means I give you free food, 5 kilo rice, everybody got in Kerala, or 25 kilo rice, right? I had also got some kind of, small in-kind measures from the government. Then the government basically came and told, Pradhan Mantri basically health sector 15,000 crores I am starting. That 15,000 crores is for PPT kit, just to start new ventilators, all that government told. I'm actually putting only for this. Then government basically said, I have Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan package. This is for people to give all the rice, pulses, the kit which you have already got. All this is through that 1,70,000 crores. All right. And tax concession, we don't have to do certain taxes. I will not collect right now, which was a meager sum of 7,800 crores. So total we had some 1,92,000 crores, 800 crores, which came up in the initial level of this discussion as fiscal stimulus. Then Congress government basically, Congress told no, this is what 0.1%, 1% of the GDP. We are at 2 trillion. You have 1,92,000, which is only 1% of 0.9% of GDP. Is that the fiscal stimulus is happening? Japan is doing 20%. Singapore is doing 7%, 12%. So this cannot be a fiscal stimulus. So government got cornered and government started deciding what should be the ideal fiscal stimulus. In between this, government asked RBI to roll out its financial package. Now RBI is an independent monetary body, and it has 2 members from government, 2 members from RBI, 1 is the governor. So that is how the decisions are achieved. Now RBI said, fine, we have to push aggregate demand, we have to reduce the lending rates. So what did RBI do? Just go further and I'll tell you what is RBI's decision. RBI's idea is basically to increase liquidity in the economy. Anybody want loan, we will give you the money. Don't worry, right? And how do I ensure that everybody gets the loan? Okay. I will reduce my repo rate. I will reduce my reverse repo rate. Reverse repo rate is what? It's a reverse, it's the money which every bank, suppose SBI has 45,000 crores with them. It can't keep the money idle. It will keep in RBI. RBI will give it 4.4% interest. Okay. And they can give back some securities. That is how it's been done. Now RBI did a lot of new activities. RBI said we are going to pump money into the system. 3.7 trillion rupees will be pushed into the system in terms of new money which comes in terms of reduced repo. Plus there are some long-term repo operations which is, you can just look through what is long-term repo operation. Then there is something called a CRR. So every 100 rupees you put in the market, in the bank has to give 4 rupees with RBI, cautionary deposit. In your school you must have, or the college you must have a cautionary deposit. Before you break the chair or table, you should have a cautionary deposit. So RBI keeps a 4 rupees for every 100 rupees which is being taken from you as a deposit. Then something is called as marginal standing facility. Suppose you wanted to lend more. RBI generally gives something called as marginal standing facility. You don't have to keep, in the branch you keep 16 rupees of every 100 rupees. In the RBI you keep 4 rupees. 20 rupees rest you can lend. That is what the standard theory is. RBI said, now increase lending, no problem. If you have to lend more, you can actually reduce even what money you keep in the bank. 16 rupees also, you keep it to another 3 rupees less. You give that 3 rupees more. So all the retail loans lending, CRR was reduced. If you are reducing, if you tell that for every 100 rupees I got as a deposit, I am lending to retail banks, you say you don't keep that 4 rupees with me, you give it to them. So the idea behind RBI's or government's policies lend more. So nobody should basically stop investing, stop operations just because there is no money. You have heard about moratoriums that you don't have to pay loans at least for 3 months. Because people have lost jobs, we will give you a concession. Certain of these moratoriums are also kind of called a forbearance. Some bank, earlier they were doing kind of okay. Till March 1st, they were actually doing their loans, EMIs correctly. Now, because of this extreme situation, I cannot do it. So we will not have a penalty. We will not have charge you more in rents. It's called forbearance, which comes in the next slide. Okay? So anyway, monetary policy responses has been kind of drastic, and it has been well documented, and it is almost like 5,70,000 crore rupees were injected into the system. All right, but various ways. So the government wants every producer not to stop production, not to do anything stupid. They stop investment, stop production. We would support you. We would give you the money. But there were two problems which were there. One problem is that banks who are given all this money, they don't want to lend. They had the Nirav Modi episode. They had the Kingfisher guy episode. They had all those NPAs which were banked behind them. So, then basically after the Raghuram Rajan restabilization policies came up, banks became more prudent and say, I will only give it to those people who really deserve, whom I'm really, thinking that will give back my money. So even though repo rates have actually come down, they flushed 5,72,000 crores of rupees into the system. Banks got more money, but banks, what did they do? They reversed back. They actually put all this money back in RBI. Almost three. I'm sorry, somebody's talking.
I've muted them.
Yeah, that's it. That's okay. Fine. So anyway, what has happened is that banks have not been able to lend. They are not lending to customers. They are not lending to people. They are putting back this money because they cannot keep this money idle. They kept this money back in RBI, which means even though government is pushing their liquidities, there is no takers for liquidity. What are we looking at? We are looking at the supply side responses. The government is trying to address the supply side responses, telling that no one should stop producing. Nobody should basically stop employing people. We would give you we would actually put an MSMEs with greater detail, telling that no MSME should stop producing, so that our production is not lost, and our employment is not lost. So, but still, liquidity, even though pushing liquidity didn't have a lot of takers, it's what is a very sad episode in this whole COVID issue. So where should government basically look at? Government should fix the demand side of the economy. Now let's look at what has the government done in terms of demand side of the economy with this 20,000 new lakhs. Just come. So let's see whether it's a 20,000 new lakh or is it the same. All right. So let's go further. I can actually go a little further, and because all this has been whatever is the relaxations and stuff, this you can have the slides. So this one, Atma Nirbhar Bharat Udyog. So you see that this is a 20 lakh rupees cut down, right? The first one is the earlier measure which I already talked. PPG kit, food supplies, tax concession, everything together 1,92,000. This is where Rahul Gandhi criticized Chidambaram, no, this is only 0.9% of Indian GDP, you can't do it. So basically then they, along with that, 8 lakh crores was actually injected by RBI. But is that real money which is getting injected? This is with banks. This is basically lending available to banks. These are not real money. Then the government told, okay, fine, we are including 5,94,550 crores for MSME, power sector and NBFCs. if you remember, NBFCs had a big problem. IFLS, this big NBFC basically started getting all short-term money, short-term credit, and they went and invested in capital markets or big infrastructure projects, which will take 10-20 years to bear fruits. Basically, we got into problem. ILFS crisis was there. So we wanted to make sure liquidity is there in the economy. Everybody who wants to get money will get money. Everybody who wants to start business will get money. So that is what the tranche 1, which is the NBFC. Second thing is MSME, because MSME is the highest employment potential in the industry. So I don't want MSME to fall, which is why MSME is given. Third is power. What is this power about? This is about reducing the cost of production at certain point of time. So what do you mean by this is fixing the aggregate supply. I am improving the infrastructure so that 24 hours power is available. So not one shift, I can do 3 shifts and I produce at a cheaper way so that I can have export competitiveness in a better way. How do I get export competitiveness? One is devaluing money. Second is how well I am able to produce the same t-shirt that China produces at a cheaper cost, right? So these two things are. Second thing is where they basically looked at migrants, NABARD, Mudra, etc., which was again partly 3,10,000 crores were actually put. Again, migrants and this NABARD, these are basically for liquidity purposes on Mudra. NABARD basically to restructure agriculture and agriculture credit a bit. Kisan credit cards to greater liquidity for farmers to get into, not into mess. But that part needs, I'm coming to that, measly sum of 3,500 crores for migrants. Okay? The last part is a very revolutionary point, which is called as the agriculture market. So deregulating essential commodities, improving the infrastructure in agriculture so that we can have, if there is huge demand increases, tomorrow I have to supply more, right? If I was only demanding 2 trillion worth of goods, suddenly demand goes up in the economy, it goes to 2.5. If I don't supply 2.5 worth of goods, inflation will be there. So I have to make sure inflation does not happen, and I will make sure my aggregate supply is being tracked. That is why agriculture is being given special focus, and they have actually improved agriculture marketing and agriculture infrastructure with that 1,50,000 crores. Now, does it basically make sense to talk about this in this time or not? Let me basically tell you what actually is the real data, right? There are some good things which is the government has done. So what does this, can we go further, a bit more further? There is a graph which I want to talk and,
Is this the one?
Yes. What is, yeah, the graph is fine. Everybody can see the graph? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now, what is the situation which we are trying to do? Possibly, from 83, which is a very low aggregate demand, we are trying to push it to the 80 due to fiscal and monetary policy. What are we achieving here? We are reducing unemployment. We will have more output in the economy. Not only that, we are asking some structural reforms in the economy, telling that demand increases, supply should also increase. So I am pushing my SARS2, which is my supply curve, to the right, which basically is through structural reforms, improving the infrastructure, making sure that people would actually not stop producing, but they keep on giving them money so that they don't stop producing, right? So what is the end result of this? I can reduce unemployment. I can produce more goods in the economy. Two, I can rein on, I can have a control on my inflation, which is the most important. Now, there are some issues as well, as I wanted to point out. So let me just get something where the government might have actually gone a bit out of picture. So let me just, can I basically share my screen and then do something? Is that possible?
I'm not sure because now Zoom has restricted it to the host only. Maybe you can try, sir.
All right, I think, let's see. No, it's not possible. Fine. So let's just talk about something. So, okay, now we have actually come to a situation where we got into a mess. We understood where we got into the mess. Now we understood what are the policies by the government by which we have actually tried to fix the mess. Now, is this policy enough or not is the question. Now, by the simple calculation, what I see is that if you look at the total amount of 20 lakhs, among the whole 20 lakhs, 2 lakhs is basically, we've already taken that. RBI has already put 8 lakhs. The first tranche is 5,94,000, which is on the MSME and the NBFC in power. That is yet to come. Let's say migrants, we are having all that 3,10,000 together, and the agriculture we have. So we have around 20 lakhs. So imagine the Indian economy. The Indian economy is 2 trillion Indian rupees, right? And so 10% of Indian economy is 20 lakhs, right? 20 lakh crores is Indian economy is 10%. Every India, in every budget, we have a government expenditure of 20 lakh crores. Every budget, 10%. 55% is from consumption, 27% is from investment, 10% is from government expenditure. So we'll have to closely scrutinize whether this 20 lakh rupees is just that we have some budget which has to be 6 months. Have we actually presented an interim budget and we just pushed what is available for us from the next year? Have we pushed it here or no? How do we understand that? It's a little tricky. But if go back to the example of 100 rupees I am getting as revenue, but I am willing to spend 103 rupees. Here it's the same case. How do we spend that 103 rupees? 3 rupee 50 paisa? We spend it by borrowing, right? That's how we do the fiscal deficit. Now, if our fiscal deficit by borrowing increases more than 10% beyond this 3.5, I can say that this is 20 lakh rupees worth of fiscal stimulus. Otherwise, if the government does not borrow because it has problems in borrowing, because it has reached the fiscal deficit, which means it is asking financial intermediaries like banks, NBFCs, etc., to fund economic growth, then what we see is that we will not find this 10%, but instead we will only find 2 to 3% of economic growth, all right, of fiscal stimulus which can push this. So in that case, there would be an ugly situation. So which is the last slide. If you go to slide number, let's say 42 or 40, I don't know, there will be an ugly situation. So what will possibly happen is a perfect situation we are having. So yeah, go on. So this is what I was telling. Yeah, go on. Yeah. So this is an ugly situation. The ugly situation is that because we don't have a 10% push, we had a 2% or 3% push. My aggregate demand is not going to be growing from that thin blue line. Instead, it will go to that small orange line. A very small increase in my output. Still, people will be unemployed. And since demand does not grow, people will not supply more. Producers will say, we can't supply because there is no demand. What will happen? That light black line touching the orange line would be highly inflationary in nature, which telling that I don't want to supply in a situation where there is less demand. I am looking at a very low growth with a high inflation economy. All right. So these are the two possibilities which is going to happen. So my suggestion or my observation is that because this is a demand problem, And because government should be getting the signal telling that I tried to push liquidity into the economy and tried to fix the investment part, supply part. Banks have rejected it. Banks have actually parked all their money back in RBI in the reverse, telling that economy does not require liquidity. It is not the liquidity which is a problem. Economy requires demand push. Aam Aadmi should get money in their hand. Consumption should increase because people from the lower strata of the society should get money in their hands. Their marginal propensity to consume is higher. They should consume more. Therefore, consumption will push the economy's aggregate demand a bit more. There would be a better consumer sentiment in the economy. Investment sentiment will slowly go up. Along with that, I'm completely along with the government in terms of improving the structural reforms, which is improving the aggregate supply situation. You have some controversial statements like from the Uttar Pradesh government and Madhya Pradesh government regarding increasing the labor timings, no money for extra wages, etc. These are things which are a part of the hire and fire situation where sudden increases in aggregate demand, I will use you. Lesser aggregate demand, I will fire you. So these are issues which we have to look. So where did we start? We started with why did this happen? What are the problems when COVID came up? A big demand fall, relatively a smaller supply fall. What are we fixing? We are fixing a demand fall by the government. Fortunately, the government is able to do a bit of this demand fall fix, but it is still going behind supply because its hands are tied. Its hands are tied because it does not have enough revenue, cannot expenditure in terms of fiscal deficit cannot grow more just because it does not have enough money in terms of, it cannot go and borrow in the market. It can't go in the borrow in the market, will say, RBI flush money into the economy, try to increase the interest, reduce the interest rate, ask people to lend more, take more money so that economy remains up, so that people do not stop producing. Unfortunately, there are lesser people for that pay. People still are waiting for a demand push. People are waiting for money in their hands so that they can consume more. And that is the only way out. So this is where I stop. I hope I've been able to entertain you a bit, bore you a bit, but able to tell you what is happening in the economy and from a general practitioner's point of view. Tomorrow when you hear certain terms, how can you relate it whether the economy is... So I have this very famous statement in my class that every person in this country should know where the economy is and how far it is from the equilibrium. Unless and until we know this, we cannot fix the economy. We should make sure our governments, each of you should be in a position to fix the economy back. I hope the fiscal and monetary policy adjustments will hopefully help us. But I think it's a demand issue. We should basically fix the demand issue by having more, borrow more, get more money, give it to the people. Let's hope the multiplier works and push back the economy into the system. Thank you so much. The floor is open for questions. Maybe you can use the chat window for the questions. And I don't have enough time. There is also a Zoom meeting which is supposed to happen at 6, internal faculty meeting. So we can actually take let's say 5 to 6 minutes, let's say 10 minutes and 10 minutes, and I can answer your questions if I'm able to. You can use the chat window. That will be nice because so that a lot of people are not opening their mouth at one shot. So let's see. We get some questions from the chat window, and let's see.
Thank you, Ashok sir, for this insightful session.
Update. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we have 7 more minutes for this session to close. So if anybody has any question, you can please put it in the chat box. I'll read it for you.
Okay. One more thing, I have an updated version of this slide, which I will send it to Ashokan sir. Ashokan sir can actually send this to the participants if they like.
Oh, sure, we'll do that. Anyway, we'll be circulating the recording to all the participants. Along with that, if you wish, we can
Okay.
send this also. I'm not seeing any questions as yet. Ashokan sir, Dr. Ashokan, principal sir, maybe you can just
Either
speak.
because they don't understand or they've understood everything.
They have a hope.
Yes.
I hope that they have understood.
I'll speak.
Okay, there is one question.
Yeah, that is what I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, the situation, I mean, it's a tough question. I think we'll have to wait at least, depending on this pandemic, okay? Now, the government has not touched the demand side just because if there's a second lockdown, things are getting out of question. The second lockdown, people will not have any cash. So that is where government is waiting for the demand eddy, aggregate demand to, I will give you money in hand. I will transfer 5,000 rupees to your account. Spend. You will not die of hunger. That is what the government idea is. I think I'm thinking about it, but they're thinking. Otherwise, they don't want to basically borrow and give you the money. So what happens in these situations is that we'll have to wait for at least 2 quarters if we don't have a second lockdown. So you think about 2020, 2 quarters, at least 3 quarters are gone. We'll have to basically think in the meantime, how do we basically get back this economy? Highly, now it's not like every economy is very interdependent, right? So we'll have to see, at least if you get a recovery from the 3rd quarter, I am expecting something, a small recovery from January of next year, which is Q4 2020-21 would be January to March if there is a recovery. Till now, we will have a negative growth. We would green shoots on investments are not possible if there is a recovery. So our idea is to have a consumption growth at least starting from September to December, right? So this quarter we will have a negative growth because people will not have money, and so don't expect. Okay. Out of Finance Minister told in the recent meeting that debts-related virus will be excluded from default under insolvency. All right. So this is something which they have tried to look at, which is called as forbearance. Now, what they do is, if you are being a kind of nice guy, has been paying your EMIs and paying your loans very effectively. Suppose because of COVID you are not able to basically do it. We will not punish you. We will not put you in the NPA list. We would basically tell, those bankruptcies, we will basically take care of. We will give you more time. What the idea is. So that is where the government is, government is telling, pacifying the investors and people who are in the production side. Don't worry about it. We are with you. But you'll have to wait and see what is going to happen. Do you think a primary, tertiary, and secondary sector innovation is conducive for big loan intake? See, in intake they are ready, but the banks are not ready. Banks are not willing to transfer whatever lesser borrowing cost to these people, just because banks have huge NPAs. So their cost of these huge NPAs have actually restricted them. This is not a kind of immediate thing. For the last 3-4 quarters, banks are being more prudent in lending. Okay, so let's see if there is any other questions. There are 3 minutes more. Yes. Wow, will dollar-rupee situation change? So the dollar-rupee situations is basically depending on international markets, exports and imports. Why? Because we are having a weaker dollar. It's because now there is a COVID, and most of our foreign, not direct investment, but foreign portfolio investment, which are hot money, has moved out of emerging economies, right? And the moment our situation changes back, hot money, it will come back. So then the things would be fine. This was a puzzle which Arvind Subramanian was trying to solve, telling that economy is in gutters, but why is share market going up? Because India is a lone emerging economy, which is a lone star, which is actually doing something well. So, people are still putting their money back in. So, which is why. But, dollar-rupee situation as of now, it's not a problem because we don't have huge oil imports as of now. investment, I mean, investment companies, investments would be kind of a little difficult as of now because they would keep hold. They want to see what is the demand situation. So remember Keynes' famous argument that I always say, companies or firms do not produce for just fun of producing. They will only produce for what they can sell. So they would look at the demand situation. Let's see if the demand situation picks up a bit better by Q3 or Q4. And then I think there will be a recovery. So don't think about a kind of any new investments. In fact, all companies would be trying to finish all these existing projects right now, and they would stop that because there will be regulations that if they don't complete it, they will not start new projects. That is what I think. It was kind of 1 minute left. Let me basically, maybe if somebody wants to conclude, they can conclude. Is it the best time to start business? Hold on. Uncertainty time is never a good time, Satish. Start a business. So let's hold on. Unless and until it's a hooch which you are trying to sell, it is not a right time to sell. That's microeconomics and micro. It's just that, you talk about one firm, it's micro. You talk about all the firms, it's macro. You talk about one person, it's micro. You talk about 1.2 billion people, right, Midhun? So I think more or less you have less 1 minute. So thank you so much for being so interactive. So there is my email ID is also available with Ashokan sir. So sometime when you want to kind of course I'm a little busy, but if you want to have work with something, we'll always be in touch. It's always.
Principal sir, if I would request you to conclude.
That's it, more or less. So thank you, Ashokan sir, once again inviting me. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. I thank all the participants for your time. And thank you, Dr. Ashok Thomas, for spending this 1.5